comics are stupid.
No Harry Potter movie is
And
good.
you're like, give me the Snyder Cut. Oh, sorry, just walk in front of you here. Gonna put my popcorn down. Oh, sorry, gotta put this here.
Universal needs to sue Sony.
Hey, I'm an idiot. I was fired from Fox. Let me go.
I'd like actually to see Venom just crush Spider-Man.
Hello, everyone. We're back today with another episode of our Hollywood in Canada series, and we have honestly, I'm gonna be honest here, okay? This is one of the coolest people I've ever interviewed, and I've interviewed some pretty cool people. Tanner Zipchen, how are you doing? So, anyone who's watching this, who's Canadian, knows who you are, and I mean, I remember watching every single time I go to the movies, I'd see you there, and it was just so crazy. And then, and then they fired you, which we will talk about because I have some questions about that. But you're also a movie fan over like everything, and you did this kind of thing for a long time before you were the host of Cineplex. So now, because you're a movie fan, I got to quiz you on some movie things. So got 3 questions here. Okay, so I'm just gonna.
Sounds good.
So the first question is a little Oscar question because the Oscars just happened. Seems relevant.
Okay.
Only one Best Picture winner in Oscars history has been nominated for 10 plus awards, won every single one of their nominations, and is the only movie, along with The Godfather 2, to win a Best Picture as a sequel. What movie is it?
As a sequel. Oh, I thought I had it. And now I'm like, oh, as a sequel. Well, let's see. Oh man, can you give me like a hint? Is it within the last 30 years?
It's in the
or is it
2000s. 2000s.
in the 2000s as a sequel?
It is a very popular movie franchise. One could argue one of the most popular movie franchises ever. There's only a few sequels that can even have the chance to win Best
I would
Picture.
say I know like Lord of the Rings was one, but I know that was Return of the King was I think we nominated in one. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if I want to. No, I'm not going to go with that.
You're right. It was Lord of the Rings.
Was that it?
Yeah, that was the one.
Okay, because I know was it Return of the King?
Yeah, Return of the King.
Okay. See, and I even knew the exact. Look at that. I mean, it took me a while, but I had to dig deep on that one. But that was good. Thank you.
You got it, so it's all good. Okay, second question. What was the name of Jeremy Renner's character in The Bourne Legacy? Obviously, that was the movie where they kind of replaced Bourne.
Yeah, and I was literally just thinking about this the other day because I was like, I came across a video of him and I on a stage in Calgary or something like that together, and we were talking about all the franchises and all the stuff. And oh man, see that was like pre-pandemic. No one has any memories. It was like the snap. We don't. It's just a time that never existed now. Oh, I don't know. I mean, that is tough. I mean,
It's okay. I would get none of these right. Like I'm just telling you now. I came up with these. I would not get. If anyone asked me these things, I would have no idea. The answer is Aaron Cross.
That makes sense because there actually is. I believe that's like a whole nother series, which I believe they're making a. That's Alex Cross. I'm thinking. Never mind. They are making a TV series, but that's something different.
Well, Treadstone is the TV series that's out now, which is Jason Bourne adjacent. So.
Okay, gotcha. Because there's an Alex Cross, I believe, which is like another series, but it's all like Jack Reacher, Jack Ryan, Alex Cross, Aaron Cross, Ethan Hunt. I mean, it's like all the same thing.
I don't know. I think there's a little difference between Ethan and everyone else, but we can pretend they're the same.
All right. I mean, all right.
Okay, last question. What critic said this about a movie that was released this year? Okay, this is a Rotten Tomatoes critic, and they said it about a movie that was released this year. One good scene can't fix a film overloaded with so much plot and so many characters that you'll actually wish everyone slowed down to tell their corny jokes.
Which movie is this? Is that you're asking?
Yes, it was released this year.
this year.
Very, very limited kind of sample to go from.
Everyone all their corny jokes. I mean, I was gonna guess the recent Suicide Squad, but I mean that was not this year.
No.
I mean, we could be like this year, like 2023 or like
2023.
2022.
2023.
2023.
This calendar year, yes, since January.
Oh man. Well, based on it, that's probably like what, Shazam 2, based on what just came out. Is that what it is?
Nope.
I don't know.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Yeah, I should have went with that. I haven't seen it, but I
You
heard
haven't seen it? Wow.
No, I heard it was not the greatest though. I heard they were trying to rush it out, and it wasn't even. Everyone was complaining about the muddy CGI and the
But it's
unfinished
Marvel,
shot.
so you have to watch it. That's just how it works.
Well, but if it's Marvel, we all know how it's going to end. They always win. The bad guy comes.
Did you
they
not
almost
watch
beat
Infinity
him.
War? I don't know.
What's that? Sorry?
Infinity War didn't have that as the result.
Did it not in the end? Were they all like? Did they win in the end?
So then, Empire Strikes Back. Who won in that?
I mean, the good guy always wins. Come on.
I don't know. Seems
Empire
like
Strikes Back. It was like, I mean, that's the thing when you have like a series, right? And you have like I mean, it's like anything where they're just kind of like the cliffhanger ending, where it's not a complete work in a way, I guess. Like, I think Infinity War was made so you would come back and see the end of the movie. It wasn't really like a full, it wasn't the full picture. Like, if you're only going to see Infinity War and not see the one that follows, then you're like missing half the piece of the puzzle here.
But it's a movie. They're not the same movie. They're two different movies. So technically,
True.
that movie ended with
True.
the bad guy winning.
You're right. That is true. By technical definition, it end with the bad guy winning, but the design was to sell tickets to the next movie, where the good guy wins.
I mean, that's the design of every movie, to sell tickets to the next one.
100%, man.
So let's talk about you now, because we talked about, and look, I could talk about movies forever. You have a very interesting story, because tell me a little bit about kind of what got you into movies and why you decided you wanted to basically either be in them or talk about them or do all that stuff.
I just grew up loving movies from the first time that I went to. I remember like seeing Jurassic Park at a drive-in theater, and the dinosaurs being like life size, and having to jump in the back seat of the car because it was so scary. And yeah, I just loved learning about movies and seeing, and then it's something like Jurassic Park, seeing how they made it, and how we had Stan Winston Studios making these dinosaurs and all this stuff, and like the magic behind it, and it just was so completely captivating. And I just watched a ton of movies. I mean, I grew up in the Blockbuster era, so every week you would go to the movie store and you would rent whatever came out that week. If there was copies on the shelf, if not, you could like try to put a hold on it or whatever, or maybe you get lucky and like catch someone walking in and putting it in the bin as you were walking in, so you could take it. But yeah, I would literally rent what was new that week and watch it, and I absorbed as much as I could. And I've always wanted to be in that field, and I started in radio before getting into the on-screen stuff. But yeah, just being trying to ultimately get as close as I could to movies as possible, and I'm getting closer every day still. So it's been great.
Now, what made you decide to because you have to audition essentially for the Cineplex host, pre-show host? I think that was your official title. So what made you decide that's something you wanted to do?
I was looking for a change while I was in radio. I had jumped around different formats, different, types of stations, and pop and rock and classic hits. And more or less it was kind of like the same thing. And, radio is going through a change, and like all mediums, it still is. So there was less talk, more rock, as they would say, so the days of like, the theater of the mind and creating all these like, comedy bits and doing interviews and stuff like that was kind of phasing out. And it was, you listen to radio now in like big markets like, Toronto, and it's literally just like Shawn Mendes. That's it. That's what they say. It's Shawn Mendes. And then the song starts. Like it used to be like, you look at radio years ago, and it was like there were personalities, there were, and I thought it was going to be like more of, I think, a creative venue for me. And which it was at first. And, I was able to like, write commercials and voice commercials and write comedy bits for morning shows and host morning shows. And you had more freedom, on a morning show. And then I started doing an interview series on my radio show where I was bringing on guests for Throwback Thursday. So people, my audience would have grown up watching or listening to. So everyone from Hal Johnson, A Body Break, to original Power Rangers and Spice Girls. And then I remember my program director being like, not everyone listened to the Spice Girls. Maybe we could just talk about the weather and like the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to think of something else to do here. And at that time, I had started working with some of the Comic-Cons out west to also do, interviews for my show. And then they had reached out saying, hey, would you ever do interviews for us, like on stage for panels for a couple of our big shows, including Calgary, which is like, 100,000 plus people in like a big stadium. And I was like, sure, let's do it. So I started doing the Calgary Con and Edmonton and Saskatoon. And then, a friend of mine sent me a link to an audition and saying, hey, this is kind of like what I think you're looking for, like what you're looking to do. It's like, doing some like hosting stuff, and now you're doing this stuff on stage. So it's kind of like the natural, I think, next step from like in a studio by yourself to on stage in front of a crowd to now like on camera. So it was kind of like a nice, bridge into it. And then, he sent me a link and I was like, nah, I don't think so. I'm like, I don't know. It seems like a lot. It's like submit a tape. And then there was this whole process that would follow. And we were, getting married at the time, and I was planning a wedding, and we were figuring out all of that and this next step in our life. And it just seemed like a lot. And then I was sitting at my radio station in my studio one day, and I knew the video had to be 2 minutes. And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe if I think of like a good enough idea, it would be worth me giving this thing a shot. And then I saw the theater outside of the studio window, and I was like, I wonder if I could walk to the theater in 2 minutes. So I literally put a bunch of music on and time myself walking from the studio to the theater. And I could get close enough that you could get a nice shot of the theater at the end. And I was like, okay, maybe we got something here. And then, I developed that, long story short, into like a concept, and quickly just called a friend and a few other friends to be like, hey, we're going to shoot this video. We literally showed up at the radio station one weekend when it was closed or when there was no one, live on air. And we did one take as a practice. We did a second take, and that was it. I submitted the video, and the rest was history.
And I'm gonna say that when you became when you're the pre-show host, I've got to tell, I would sit there in the theater and I'm like, first of all, a little bit envious because I was watching you. There's one thing that sticks in my head. There's one time before one of Mark Wahlberg's movies that you were on set somewhere with him, and he was teaching you how to create an explosion. And I don't know why that just stuck with me, but that was one of the points. I was like, damn, this man's life is so cool.
Yeah, that was mile 22 in Atlanta. And I remember the guys on set being like, hey, like I was flying out right after that. And they were like, just so you know, like, here's what you need to tell airport security, because there's a really good chance that you will have residue on you from the explosives that were used today on set, so you may set off, if you're swabbed, like you may set it off, because that's what, so I'm like, oh, great. So here I was flying out, having been, just a few feet away from like blanks and explosives and, grenades going off. And now I'm about to fly through an international airport through really strict security. But thankfully it all went okay. But I was nervous leaving that set because there was a lot of explosions. It was a lot. I'm surprised Mark did it. He was like right in there, and I'm like, his ears were ringing because he was close to it. Like there was on the shot we were shooting that day anyway, there was no real double swap. Like he throws a grenade and then he dives like in front of it. And I was like, wow, that is commitment.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many times, like, I mean, there's a little envy there. And I was also like, this man's life is like awesome. And he does so many cool things. Now I got to ask you about this thing, which, I've been told to ask you because it's something everyone wants to know. You were paid in scene points. How is that whole thing? How'd that all work? What was that like?
I mean, that is a case of the Toronto Star trying to like boost subscribers, I guess, on their website. I feel like journalism used to be about reporting stories from like an unbiased perspective, and now it's about like the journalist getting clout and putting their name on stories or getting people to, I don't know, like get them hooked and get them to read. And then anyway, so this guy reaches out to me. I won't say his name, but he was like, I'm doing a piece on working for exposure. And he's like, I know that you had, when I first came into the gig, it was literally a chance to like, be on the big screen, and they would give you like, it was free movies, and you got, but that was, the stipulation was a very limited amount of shooting, blah blah blah. And after that, it became a job. Like I only did that for the first little while, and then it became a full-fledged job. And also during that first year, I was paid for additional stuff. Like I was writing for their website and hosting other things, and that was all additional. But I gotta say, they did stick to the contract though, and they wouldn't budge on the like payment until the year was up, and then before it came a job. But anyway, I was approached to do this article, and he's like, yeah, I actually have a lot of other people already on board, like some past pre-show hosts, a couple other hosts and actors and whatnot in the area. And then I did this interview, and I literally didn't say anything. I was just talking about entering this contest, and people voted for me, and I won free movies. And like it was a struggle because I was I was compensated or paid, or whatever words they want to use, in scene points. And it was really tough to pay your mortgage and scene points, because I was taking unpaid leave from my radio job at the time. So, it was kind of a sacrifice for bigger things. But I guess the point of the story is that I turned like a free opportunity into an actual paying job that lasted me like 5 years. But then when the article came out, I thought it was kind of interesting because they asked for some photos of me and some headshots and things. And I was like, that's odd. Like an article that involves so many different people, like why would they want stuff about me? And then when I saw it get published, it was like my head, and it was like, I speak out against the company. And he acted like I had literally like, parted ways with the company. And then I like called him up right away and was like, hey bro, I got to tell you the story. Let's go meet for coffee. And then I sat him down and I told him everything. So then a lot of people put it together thinking like, okay, I left the company because I was getting paid in points, and then I asked for money. So then they like got rid of me. And the biggest issue is like I said at the beginning of this, is there was a paywall on the website. You had to subscribe to continue to read. And a lot of people only read the first couple paragraphs that I got to say were very ambiguous. And a lot of people didn't finish the article. So they literally made assumptions off of a headline. And then the internet kind of like, as you see nowadays with headlines, places will, put out a headline that'll get the most clicks, and it may not exactly be accurate, but it's not a lie. It's just kind of like, they just tweak a few details, but then nobody ever checks into it, and they just make a whole opinion based on the headline. And then the internet starts to like repeat itself. And next thing you know, the story is that I was paid in points. I never got paid any real money. And then as soon as I asked for money, I got let go. And that's like, to this day, people still come up to me, they're like, oh man, like, I don't know how you did it. I'm like, I mean, I was paid in money. You were
paid in money. So we're going to, just to be very clear. So
I was paid in money.
They paid you real money to do a real job, and they did not fire you because you wanted real money.
Yes. I mean, but there is like all these internet rumors, there is like a nugget of truth. And that is, yes, for that first year, it was technically a contest for a job, which I have to say, in the end of it all, the Labor Board of Canada does not agree with that. You cannot win a job as a contest. So, but unfortunately, I have learned a lot about labor laws in my last few years. And one of those things is the statute of limitations. So if you are owed wages for the first year of a job that is now more than so many years ago, they're kind of off the hook, because it's too much time has now passed. So whether they agreed or disagreed with that or not, it's like there's not much I can do, unfortunately. Which is the other like ridiculous thing, is they're like, well, you're supposed to, if you have a problem with an employer, you're supposed to raise the concern immediately, because as they said, the employer is not allowed to take action against you for exercising your rights. But I can tell you, having worked at that company, if I were to have done that, and I've seen it happen to other people, what they would have done is they would have, necessarily not removed me for doing that, but they would have restructured my position in some way, like they do with people all the time. They don't like somebody's assistant, so they don't want to like have problems, so they lay them off. And then they don't hire an assistant position, they hire a liaison to the manager. So then they can't get in trouble legally. So I mean, these corporations and companies have ways around everything. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna like I would have raised this concern years ago. I would have had a target on my head. But yeah, so
you did end up getting paid, which is the important thing. They did eventually pay you for your work.
Getting paid for most of it, but I did recover some of the owed money from the company, as there's been a lot of that, which is the crazy part about it, is the actual story of like what happened, which is a really big story, and all the things that I was privy to and I witnessed is far greater and far like juicier. There's more tea, as they say. But unfortunately, this journalist, had he done a decent job with it and didn't like burn a bridge on the first go, I'm like, hey, maybe he could have had a big story out of it. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just cross you off the list now, Mr. Toronto Star guy.
So speaking of big stories, because you just said you have a lot of tea, and I have to kind of now. So the way at least the story publicly goes, is that the merger, or the failed merger of Cineplex and Cineworld, I think that's what they're called, which is a UK based company, obviously, and there was a whole thing about a merger, and then it all fell apart because of some legal stuff. Was that the reason that you left or were fired? And why did that fall? Like, what is do you know the reasons that fell through?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess, to answer your question, I guess I mean, technically I was let go without cause. When the labor board looked into it afterwards, I think they had to provide them with a reason. I can't remember the exact reason they used. I think it was, okay, so to back it up a little bit is, yes, I think indirectly it had to do with that. Now, at the time, I was like, the only host for this company. I was running around, flying around, doing everything. And anytime that I had voiced any concern about like, hey, like, it's really tough to like have my complete schedule on hold all the time, because I would literally get last minute, notices to fly somewhere. Like I remember coming back from Niagara Falls Comic-Con and getting a text about, are you ready for London? And I was like, oh, like we had just shot some stuff in Stratford, Ontario. And I was like, oh, what are we doing in London? Like, no, like England, like this weekend. I was like, this weekend? Or this week. And I was like, but like, it's Sunday. Like, what do you mean this week? They're like, oh yeah, you fly out at 7:00 tonight. And I was like, I literally had to go to the airport and like sort my clothes from the Comic-Con and like repack it and then jump on a plane. And I was like, well, I guess I got to cancel like, everything I had going on. And then I find out later that, like that was like long time planned. Like, that's the thing with these press days and these set visits is like, they have to coordinate the talent. Like they have to get the entire cast of the movie at the same hotel and then coordinate, the movie studio around it and the camera crews around it. So like they know when those days are. And it was just a break in communication on my company's end that they would not tell me this stuff until the very last minute. So it was becoming very tough to do the job. And it actually forced me to go around them a lot of times and form relationships with those movie studios, which did benefit me in the end in some way. It's like, when they give you lemons, you got to make lemonade. So, but and I basically got to a point where it was like I was having like health issues and other things going on, and like my doctor finally said like, you got to take a break, and they like literally wouldn't give it to me. Like they kept saying that if I took a break, or if I didn't want to do things, there were other people that were lining up to do this job, and then I was like, I was so lucky, and it was like, one of those companies that working for them is the biggest perk. So I had to take a stress leave, and I took a stress leave, and then I came back, and it was like they almost made me like regret it, and I had to take another stress leave because it just was worse off. And while I was on a stress leave, I woke up to a ton of messages and tweets and comments, and all of a sudden I'm like, what is going on? I look at my phone, and there's like people are like, what's going on? Do you still have a job? What's happening? And I was like, what is this? And I look, and there's been this announcement that they are selling the company and they're going to merge. And I was like, I have no idea what is happening. So people are like, bless their hearts, right away concerned for like, what if I'm going to be a part of this in some way, if that's that or whatever. And so I had literally like just put something out on social media to like literally like, here I am on like a stress leave for like anxiety and whatnot. And then I'm getting like, this is not helping. Like, this is a lot. So I'm like, okay, so I got to like, I try to like, squash it in some little way. So I put out a tweet saying like, thank you all for the support. I'm paraphrasing, like, thank you all for the support. I know as much as you do. Like it's been whatever. It's been great being a part of this experience so far. And hopefully I can continue, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, all of a sudden it's like, it keeps growing. And next thing you know, like Save Tanner is trending on Twitter, like across Canada, and it's growing and it's growing. And them being the company that they are and not understanding social media, as you can tell by their social media channels and their YouTube channels, like there's a bit of disconnect. They thought I was behind this in some way. They were like, they thought it was me doing this.
Wait,
to,
they thought you started an internet trend after, like, basically. Like, I don't. And again, I'm going off memory from something that happened like years ago, but I don't think you ever said anything about like in terms of like the Save Tanner thing. Like, I don't think you actually addressed like you used the hashtag or anything at all.
No, I literally just said that little piece, and there was people that were coming out and they were telling me. I remember a particular fan said that they had moved here to Canada and they felt like they were, alone, and this was like a huge departure, and they left their family and friends, and they said that they, that I was like they felt their first friend in Canada. Like I was the familiar face that they saw at the movies every time they went to the movies, and they felt they had at least a one friend here. And like I'm like, how do you not reply to these people that are like pouring their hearts out? And so I was like, thank you so much for sharing that, blah, blah, blah. So I get an email and a call that afternoon about how I'm feeding this hashtag and I'm causing this, thing to explode and blah, blah, blah. And it ended up being a bunch of emails back and forth and a pretty threatening phone call from their head of PR, where they basically said that I was interfering with $1 billion deal, and they were going to take legal action against me with the Canadian Securities Commission, which doesn't actually exist because it's a commission governed provincially, not nationally. So they were literally just saying whatever. And I remember even calling the Canadian Securities Commission, getting put through the Ontario one. And the guy on the phone even said, he's like, listen, I'm not a lawyer, but if your company is like bluffing you and using the scare tactics like this isn't a good thing. You might want to like try to protect yourself in some way. And I was like, oh, what is going on? And all of a sudden I remember like getting on the phone with one of them and saying like, this could have all been alleviated. Like, I had no idea what was happening. Like, why didn't anyone let me know like that this was coming down? And like, I could have, we could have had something ready to go, like a message or something to coordinate. And I was like, I was just doing what I could on my end to like, give me some like peace and like, so I could like, didn't have to shut my phone off. And I said like, any briefing or anything would have helped. And they literally said to me like, what makes you think you are deserving of a briefing? And I said, well, because I think a lot of people would associate me with
Cineplex.
the company.
Yeah.
So when the company was in the news, like, being like the face, before the movies, people just tweeted me. Like they were tweeting me all these questions about this merger. And they literally said I had to check my ego. I am not the face of the company. The CEO is the face of the company.
Did you show the hashtag or no? Did you should have said, are you sure? I've got a hashtag that says otherwise.
No, but here's the thing though. They had it in their heads, like, cause they were like, the CEO was the face of the company and their head publicist was the voice of the company. And I was nothing. And I was like, well, what about this like hashtag? I'm like, clearly there's some disconnect here. I'm like, I think you think one thing, but I think maybe the rest of Canada doesn't think that. So you have to understand, that this may not be what you think it is. And then the head of legal is like calling me and emailing me about the horrible comments that I made about the CEO and like him being a nobody. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, I literally just said, if the company is in the news, most people or the most like moviegoers are going to associate me with the experience and reach out to me, which I proved with the hashtag and the thousands and millions of impressions I was getting that day. I don't think people were like, if you did a search with like the CEO's name, I don't think much was popping up. I was like, so I'm like, guys, I'm not saying this. Like, I'm not just saying this. And they took it as like, it was me and my ego being like, oh, like I'm so important and I should have been told. And how dare you slip this by me? And anyway, I was like, whoa, this is getting like out of hand. And there's clearly a lot of emotions at play. I know a lot of these executives, they had stock value in this deal. So they had like, there was a lot of payouts on the line. There were a lot of bonuses on the line. So everyone was just like literally biting each other's heads off because, they might lose money.
I mean, to be fair, it seems like they were biting your head off a lot longer than just like, during the deal. So I don't know if that was because of the deal.
And then I literally came back to work after my stress leave and I had a meeting with my boss to, we were talking about, it was in the new year and we're talking about like, or so I thought. We were going to talk about what was coming up. We had plans to like, we were launching a podcast, doing some other stuff, and looking at getting more specific VIP content going again and whatnot. And literally, I walked in her office, and then there was like a pause, and the HR like lady was hiding around the corner and came in, and I was like, all right, this is it, I guess. And literally, like, which was not like them, which is very strange. Like, according to like, my friends and producers and colleagues at the building, like, oh yeah, like, the companies do it on this day. They don't do it with there's people around. They don't do whatever. And they like broke all the rules. And it was like an office full of people. And I'm like, what is happening? And like producers are like, dude, what's going on? And I'm like, I just got like let go. And they're like, are you serious? And they literally like, yeah, that was it. And I was like, okay, I guess that's that.
Were you relieved? Were you kind of relieved to some extent? I know obviously it was a job which you lost, but like, was there any party that said, hey, I'm done with this now. I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to go on stress leaves.
It was tough because like, people were associating the persona of me on the screen with who I was. And, it was like, I think in a way, like it was a good thing for growth and for opportunities. But at some point it starts to like really limit you, and it starts to, and then, working for them and seeing some of the stuff they were doing, and like being a lover of film and a supporter of Canadian films and being a Canadian filmmaker and seeing how they treated those people and what was going on behind the scenes and some of the stuff that they were pulling. And it was just harder and harder to be the voice, the unofficial face. I remember I wasn't the face of the company. Remember, I was, according to them, I was never the face or the voice of the company, but to represent or to feel, I guess, that I was representing that was getting harder and harder every day. So yeah, there was some relief. And I went home and I was like, okay, well, I mean, people think that I'm still, doing this job. So I guess I should like let people know that, because I mean, the last thing anyone was talking about was save Tanner. So I was like, I guess I should put some kind of update out there. And I said, like, I put out another tweet saying like, thanks for, letting me be a part of all your memories. And, that's it. Again, paraphrasing. Yeah. And then it blew up, and from which was like trending again on social media, which, I mean, for the second time, they should have figured it out. But anyway, I know from people that were still there, I know they were completely shocked by it, because they thought, well, the plan is they were going to continue to use all of my interviews and all my videos until they ran out. I know that because they also told me that, but they said, yeah, they were going to use all my footage. Because, we would shoot stuff in advance. Right. Like I would, the Suicide Squad set, I was there with James Gunn on the set of Suicide Squad. That movie was coming out like years later. Right. So we had footage, we had stuff years in advance. We would shoot those intros in bulk. So I would literally change a shirt, shoot an intro, change a shirt, put on a Christmas sweater, do it again. So like we had content going forward. And their plan was they were going to continue to use it until it ran out, and then just slowly phase me out, which,
phase you out into
doesn't
air,
help,
because there's no one there to actually replace you. It just air.
Yeah, but it doesn't help me as like, it makes me look like I'm still there, and it doesn't exactly make me, employable or hireable if people still think I'm working for this company that I'm not working for. Right. So I was like, I gotta let them know. I gotta like announce that I'm no longer, we've severed ties, and yeah, according to my friends that were still there, they were like shocked to see this tweet go out, and they right away like pulled my contract, because they're like, he has an NDA, he's not allowed to say anything, and blah blah blah. Then they quickly realized that
go to court with that. Let's see how that ends up.
Yeah, there was like no NDA, no nothing, and then they were like, yeah, it was like a whole, all hands on deck and whatever, and then like the Save Tanner movement was like, when I got let go, that was trending and that was everywhere, and that turned into like, people like, and bless their hearts, all the fans that were like, wanting me to come back. And they were, anytime they posted anything on social media, they were jumping on it. So they had to like go off social media for a while. And then they got to a point where like, well, now what are we going to do with all this footage? So they started like zooming in on the interviews. So they would crop my like head out. Like I'd be on a red carpet, like interviewing somebody at like CinemaCon, and like, you could see like the tip of my nose or my hair like pop into the frame, because they had to zoom in, because they like, if they showed me, then it would like almost like, this fire would like, like start raging again. So like, okay, we gotta like, we gotta like hide him. so no one can remember. Like, forgive. We got to just like forget about it, and maybe people will
You
forgive
know what they should have done? They
us.
should have just blurred your
um,
face and like made your like changed your voice and then just caught it that.
would do that. I was hoping they would like a Windows protection where they're like, oh, why do you think audiences will like this movie? And they're like, and it's but yeah. So it was like a pretty, but I mean, there again, it's a really long story. Like beyond that, like I was there for almost 5 years, and there was so much stuff along the way, and it was like by the time it kind of reached an end, it was kind of like, I felt like it was time to maybe like even realistically speaking, like I don't know how much longer we would have really continued. Like the industries are changing all the time. Budgets are cut as prices, as income is dropped. Like look at the pandemic. Like when the pandemic started, immediately after, it was like mass layoffs, and it was people. So like honestly, had I still been there, who knows?
You probably wouldn't have survived the pandemic like most people.
Yeah, like there were people that even now, like they got rid of after the pandemic. After me, they cut costs wherever they could, because without the people in the theater and like having to keep those buildings open and like keeping them warm in the winter, and these big empty buildings that they don't own any of them, so they're like renting these spaces, and they don't even own their head office. They were like, well, they didn't own the head office, but they had to, from my understanding, is they had to sell the head office to a property developer and then like rent it back from them, because it was like hard. I mean, that's a legit story. You can read about it. They literally like, it's like you selling your house to someone and then renting it back from them. It's like, that's hard times. But yeah, and it was like, with all the changes, like they got rid of Time Play, they got rid of the magazine for a while, they got rid of all the extra bells and whistles because they just cut costs where they could. And the pre-show would have been probably in that mix as well. So it was probably like inevitable that it would have happened. And I doubt I really doubt I'd still be there to this day, because even now, like it's not what it was. Like even press junkets as a whole have changed. Like there's friends of mine that in Canada that no longer even really travel all that much for press junkets, because now we're in this virtual.
Well, yeah, it's now it's all just Zoom and all this other stuff.
And they're realizing people are okay with it, so they don't have to spend thousands of dollars to send some journalists across the world to like sit at a Four Seasons and like feed them dinners and stuff like that and spend all this money. They can literally just give them a Zoom link and get the same coverage that they would. So yeah, people are traveling less. Like the whole industry, like it's so interesting to me looking back on it, because like when I left, that was also the turning point for the industry completely changing. Right. And it is very different now. Like streaming grew and blew up, and we see the birth of like Disney Plus and Peacock and all these other platforms, and Netflix is growing, and like it's like studios are being built to support more and more streaming content, and it's really changed, and who knows where it'll go in the future. I mean, I just saw a thing today that Blockbuster may be returning.
Wow.
If you go on blockbuster.com, there is a cryptic message that says, "Be kind while we rewind," with a Blockbuster logo. What does that mean?
Blockbuster streaming service coming soon. Streaming services of the streaming services. That's going to come eventually. Like and they're having kind of certain bundles and stuff which have existed between streaming services, but that has to be the crazy
part is too is this on the streaming front. Is I was told when I was working there at said company that they actually were like first to the whole streaming thing, like with their online store. Right. And there was an opportunity, according to my understanding, unless this is rumors in the company, but this is what I was told. But there were opportunities, or there was talks of like selling subscriptions instead of having people rent individual titles. And I guess the powers that be realized that wouldn't maybe be as much money or whatever it was, and it didn't. They're all about dollars and cents. They're all about short game dollars and cents, not long game. And I guess they shot the idea down, and then all of a sudden Netflix showed up, and as where they are now. But it's interesting to think how things might have been different.
And now they have now their streaming services is to go to the movies, and they have their whole I don't remember what it's, Scene Plus, I think, and they also have. I don't know. They have two, I think, right now, or one.
Well, they have like their online store,
right? And they still have that still rolling around there, but
yeah, and that's their like streaming service, I guess. Like that's what they're trying to like push is like spend extra money on a ticket and get the digital copy and whatever. But yeah. I don't know how. I've yet to talk to somebody. I have yet to talk to a super ticket owner in my travels. If you know one, let me know. But I've yet Have you bought a super
I
ticket?
bought one in my entire. I don't remember what movie it's for. It's just one movie. I don't even remember now what it was for. I bought one in my entire life because I was like, I want this movie like digitally. I bought it once. Also, I wanted to try.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow.
I might be the only person ever, but I did buy one.
You are the first. I'm honestly like I've literally like I remember we would like be in the theaters and we'd be like shooting, intros to the show, and sometimes like the show would start playing in another theater down like the lane, and like me and the crew would be like sitting there like kind of watching. We pop in to like see what we've shot and see the big screen. And I remember like super ticket ads and stuff. I'm like, do you know anybody who's ever got one of these? And I'm like, no, like I don't know, because also like you've just seen the movie and you only have so long to redeem the super ticket thing. So like you've just seen the movie, you're already going to double down on it again. I'm like, I mean, it's a weird model. I've never known anyone to get one, but you are the first.
I mean, I don't even remember what movie it's for, but I remember the scenario was I want to get this. I want to like buy this movie anyways. Right. So, and it was it was so long ago, and I was like, I'm just going to get the super ticket because why not? Like I might as well, because I'm going to buy the movie anyways. So, and then I never did it again. So it was a one-time purchase,
It was such a great experience. You never did it again.
Well, and then I was like, I could just buy like Blu-rays of the movie. It's better anyways. Then you get the digital copy for free and that. So
that's the thing. That's me. I'm like a physical medium person. If you're gonna have it, like have the Blu-ray, because also like I mean with digital files things get lost and you get locked out of accounts and whatever.
Also, you don't technically own the digital movie, right? There's a whole technically you're renting it, right?
Yeah, and you lose your access. That actually happened with me. I had a really old like iTunes account, and I had to like argue with Apple to get like old titles back, because when it changed over, like I had lost titles that I should have had access to, and they had to go back and be like, oh yeah, and they like had to reinstate certain files. But even with streaming, like there's people out there that won't, I won't buy this, or I don't want to own a Blu-ray this because it's on Netflix or it's on whatever. But then all of a sudden, fast forward like a couple months and it just drops off of that platform. And, come Halloween, you want to watch your favorite scary movie, and like, it's no longer on there. And you're like, so it's, if you want to, you can't trust anyone. You want to watch a movie, you gotta have it.
I mean, a lot of people's counter to you would just be just stream it illegally, but here we don't endorse illegal streaming and we think it's morally wrong. So don't do that.
True. I work in the film industry. So, I mean, I would be shooting myself in the foot if I was like doing any of that stuff. So no, legit. I mean, yeah, legit.
Yeah, I'm very anti-pirating because it's illegal and all that other stuff. So, and also morally wrong. And
True.
Now, I know we're going a little bit over time. I'm not sure if you're in a rush to go or not.
No, I actually have a little bit more time if you would like to do. Yeah, all good.
Okay, perfect. Because I didn't want to keep you like.
But it's slid back with other things, so we're okay.
Okay, good. Because I was like, oh no, because I'm already 10 minutes over. But what's your all-time favorite movie? Because I gotta know this.
I think honestly, based on what got me started into it, and what really I think really got me, like I said, into like the filmmaking side, it got to be Jurassic Park, man. Like it's like just even to this day, it's also one of the movies that still stands up. Like I think after all those years, just because of the way they did it, practically, or unlimited the amount of CG and or did like a stop motion style CG, like it still stands up. Like you watch, Jurassic Park was like 93. So you take any movie from that era, like even like Scorpion King, or The Mummy, which was far more recent, that's even like looks more dated. They just did such a great job with the film, and it's like the way that it's like the horror elements and the sci-fi and then all the behind the scenes stuff. And as a kid, like loving dinosaurs and everything that went into that, and just that's the movie that hooked me the most. And I think it's the one that I can like watch again and again. It never seems to really get old, and I can still enjoy it every time. So it's got to be Jurassic Park. I mean, I'm also like, I gotta say, people, it's a debated topic, but The Lost World is also, I feel, a solid sequel that people sometimes hate on. Although I will say the new Jurassic World films,
are garbage, right?
It is a shame. It is a real shame.
Because I was just worried you're gonna go to they're actually not that bad thing, and
no.
Okay.
When they announced the original cast was coming back, I was like, oh, it was like I had a Viking funeral. I like sent my Jurassic Park VHS out onto Lake Ontario and then shot a flaming arrow at it. I was like, it's dead. No, I still try to separate them in my mind. But the new Jurassic World, I'm like, to bring the cast back, and it's such a sacred thing. And like, it's also a bad thing when you, in your mind, your imagination, you imagine like how this is gonna go. Like, we're gonna have like Chris Pratt's character, like Owen, like, fighting a T-Rex and then getting knocked off the cliff and then climbing to the top, and all of a sudden a hand reaches out and it's Alan Grant and he pulls him up and he's like, I heard you need some help. And you're like, wow. And then like everyone's doing their thing and Jeff Goldblum's like got his shirt open and he's, but it's like, and then you see what they actually did with it. And there was like, there was more bugs than dinosaurs. Yeah. And it was like a Three Stooges movie, and there was like slapstick comedy. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, no. Oh,
just wait like 30 years or so when they make the next Jurassic movie, and everyone's like excited to see the nostalgia of Chris Pratt returning. The thing about Chris Pratt is going to be nostalgia. Like, that's crazy. Because,
I think honestly at this point though, they've pretty much bled that dry. I don't think there's like much love left for that franchise. But
time does so much work for that.
Yeah, I think what's most likely we're going to see it. I hate to say it because I would be against it, but it's going to happen because it's honestly inevitable with the industry. It'll be a remake. Give it 20, 30 years. I think it'll be most likely a Jurassic Park reboot or a remake, and that's where they're probably going to go with it. It's my bet anyway. I think we'll see a remake of the original, because keep in mind the novel. The Crichton novel, what they pulled from the Crichton novel to make the film, they didn't like what they did with the movies is the stuff that we see in the Lost World, the stuff that we see in Jurassic Park. Like a lot of that is that's from the same novel that they kind of pulled and separated. So you could literally do another adaptation of that book and kind of get a different movie out of it. So I'm thinking I mean, at least for me, not that I would love either of them. I would probably even rather see a remake of that or another adaptation of the novel than to see them continue on with, I don't know what they're going to do next. Like, it'll be like the dinosaurs TV show. These dinosaurs, if they do a sequel, these dinosaurs are going to be talking, wearing suits, having jobs, like
Dinosaur City.
Like a Flintstone. It'll be literally Dinosaur City if they continue it. Exactly.
So I think, Jurassic Park's a great movie. And then the World Series is sad. To say the least, just to be nice.
Very
sad. I've got to ask you, because your Twitter is very fun. I got to say, I really enjoy your Twitter feed.
Here's the thing, I'm not even really on Twitter all that much, and even I tweeted finally today about how I'm going to lose my blue check in April because they've just announced they're no longer going to continue these blue check marks. It's a thing of the past. But I'm rarely on Twitter, and I feel bad because I always will be like,
you should tweet more. You should tweet more.
Well, being in a visual, media, like I feel like Instagram and even now TikTok, it's like more in line with like, because I have like photos and videos of everything and whatever. And I always forget about Twitter. And I was like, I don't know, Twitter. I got to give Twitter more love though. You are right.
Before it dies.
I owe Twitter a lot. Actually, I shouldn't say I owe Twitter a lot. Twitter technically,
you owe your fans on Twitter a lot.
Is the reason I lost my job. No, but but yeah, thanks Twitter. Maybe that no. Yeah, I got to be on Twitter more though.
So, but there's one tweet which kind of was like in my mind, or two tweets. So the first one is you just kind of threw out the idea that you were going to start or you thought about starting a podcast, and so
true story.
So what's that? Like,
yeah,
are you doing that first of all?
So yeah, like I said, I started in radio a long time ago, and I've always kind of like missed, just sitting in a room by myself with a microphone and just talking to the walls. And I was like, maybe I should get back to that. No, honestly, like I had doing voiceovers all the time and voice auditions and things like that. Like, I've got the setup, I've got a studio, and I've thought about over the years, and I've had different ideas for different podcasts and whatnot. And then actually during the pandemic, I wrote a memoir of my experience as the host of the pre-show, and like a complete behind the scenes look from all the political stuff that went on to all the tea and all the what Dwayne Johnson smells like in real life, and what it was like on the set of Mile 22. And I had wrote this memoir, and it like kind of just like sat there and never really went anywhere. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I should do something with this. And I was like, maybe I should do a podcast. And so I've been thinking about it more and more lately, and then, trying to formulate ideas on how exactly I'm going to like, bring this to life. But and I was at a Comic-Con a couple months ago, and everyone there during the panels was saying the same thing, to start a podcast, because there was like, I was telling stories of all my experiences, like, you should do a podcast. So
anyone can start a podcast. I started a podcast, and
that's the thing. And then everyone, but that's the other thing, is like everyone else is doing it, and I'm like, am I going to be another one of the millions and thousand million billion podcasts that are out there about things? And then I was like, maybe I can, if I can find a reason, like my audition video for the pre-show host, if there's a good enough idea that I can bring a unique enough perspective, then maybe I'll do it. And I don't want to say too much about it, because I don't want to steal the name or anything or beat me to it. But yeah, I think it's time to finally.
Wait, the name is going to be Tanner Time, right?
Tanner, I wish. No, I mean, it's not, unfortunately, but yeah, I think it's time. I think I'm gonna, I've got friends, so many people in the industry that, you can have some really cool conversations and, offer perspectives, on things. Like I still to this day, like, I've been on so many film sets, my experience in radio, being on stage at music festivals, being, on tour buses, being at film festivals, backstage at award shows, on sets. I'm now, I own a picture car. I rent it out to film productions. My wife's an on-set studio teacher, so she works with, child actors. I'm an animal wrangler part-time now. Because my friend Melissa Millett, who's an amazing animal trainer, I go out with her all the time, and I help her, just hang on set with some of these cool animals that are very well trained and very talented. She just did the new Pet Sematary movie, which she did the first one. She did Titans, all this stuff. But so it's like I keep doing so much. I'm like actively writing. I've written a bunch of scripts, and I was like, I feel like maybe I can bring a perspective and like an honest one too, because I think like that was the thing that really held me back, or really got to me the most. As as the face of a giant brand, you really feel like you're restricted because you can't say a lot. You can't be honest. Not even like full honesty. Like not even like nothing. Like you have to like. Every movie, I had to love every movie. I had to be like, the must-see movie of the weekend. You're going to love it. Maybe I didn't like Smurfs: The Lost Village. What? I couldn't tell people.
How could you not like an animated movie about blue people?
I know. And I was like, so it's like, now's the chance to like, maybe I can, share some fresh, refreshing, honest perspectives. Maybe read a bit of the book that never was published, share some wisdom, answer some questions. I know, like you say, people have questions, and you had people give you questions, and I get questions all the time, DMs and at cons and stuff like that. And so it's like answer questions, and a lot of people want to know how to get in the industry. I came from Saskatchewan. It's really tough to do this because the film industry doesn't exist out there. There's no credit. There's no film credit. So like, and I'm now here in Ontario.
I was going to make a joke about Saskatchewan being like nothing existing there, but I refrained, and I guess I just made it out. Oops.
Well, it's unfortunate because they did have a film industry, and there was a tax credit, which, led to a lot of, or some filming, like, the corner gas era, as they unofficially refer to it as. And then unfortunately, change of government, and there was a push to get rid of it because they had spun it to look like it was costing the province so much money when it was. God
forbid you have something in like culture wise, but
yeah, it was a very narrow-minded perspective on it because they looked at only some of the stats of how much it was costing them and not how much it was making them, and they really spun it to look to fit an agenda.
Someone
and all of a
hates
sudden it was
movies,
voted out.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't. Honestly, it's interesting. Like, I've done a lot of, work and research into the film industry out there, and, going back 50 years, like, there were Westerns shot out there, like Donald Sutherland shot movies
Canadian
there,
legend.
in the prairies. Like, you look at something like, The Last of Us that just shot in Calgary, and there's different prairie settings and different things like that they use. And it's unfortunate, like, Saskatchewan just keeps getting missed. And there was even a film recently with Christopher Walken, the Monsanto story, which was called.
I've got nothing. I got nothing.
I want to say it was called Percy, maybe.
You're probably. I've got nothing. No, I got nothing on me.
It's about the Monsanto story, which actually happened in Saskatchewan, and they shot it in Manitoba because there's a film credit in Manitoba, and Manitoba and Winnipeg have been getting a lot of action out there. So it is unfortunate that it went away, but even if they did bring the credit back, it's like a lot of the people, the skilled laborers, the skilled workers have left. They've either, you go to work on a production in BC or Vancouver or Toronto, and it's surprising how many Saskatchewan people are banging around here because they've left. So even if the credit returns, it's going to take a while for the industry to return because those people like I don't think you're going to get the people back that have left. You have to just keep people from leaving going forward. And then there's a matter of all the equipment. Like they used to have a film studio, but who knows where the equipment is now? Like some farmers probably using that slider to hold his barn door open. And they're like, where do we put that jib for the camera? Where did that end up? Like, I don't know. They gotta.
And I mean, technically, even if they're making a movie about Saskatchewan, they could just do it in Alberta and no one would know the difference. So that's
the thing, which they did do with the Monsanto story in Manitoba. They shot in Manitoba, but I've been on film sets here in Ontario where they literally are shooting a prairie. One was a James Franco film, I believe it was called Kin, and there was a police station, and it was like in the New Mexico desert kind of situation. They had people out front like planting wheat and grass into the ground, and dressing the set to look like prairie. And I'm like, if there was only a place that had prairie, you could film in. I was like, but it's unfortunate, but so I mean, so people ask me all the time, like, how do you get into this industry? Because for anyone, especially back home, it's kind of a very foreign world for a lot of people, whether it's, media or radio or, on screen or acting or writing. It's like, so maybe, we could share some wisdom. And I've had to do a lot of this myself. I never, unfortunately, grew up, in this area or in this industry. So I couldn't really lean on anybody to, get advice from, or, I had to, even my very first press junket with said company, I was literally sent an itinerary. And then I was at the Four Seasons in LA, walking into a room with Christian Bale and Ryan Gosling. I have no idea what a press junket is. I have no idea how this works. I literally 99% of the stuff that I've done, I've had to learn myself. Even radio. I never went to radio school. I literally sat in front of a mic and I learned it myself. I figured it out. And so if I can help someone else out so they don't have to do that and alleviate some of the stress, because this industry is stressful enough as it is, then I would love to do that. And I think the podcast, without giving too much away, is, for me, it's going to be a lot of that. Is going to be just making it easier for the next person. And maybe, if I can do some good, is at least pass on all this wisdom that I've acquired, I guess.
Well,
unwillingly.
I think that's actually, a very cool kind of give back kind of to the fans kind of thing. And I think, look, I mean, I've been talking to you for 57 minutes and I feel like I could talk to you for about 3 more hours and still get just, and it's everything you say is because you have so many cool experiences. And I mean, we barely even touched on your time at Cineplex. We've kind of talked about around it, and there's so many cool things, and you also love movies. So
there's a lot. There's so many things that I learned, and I'm that are really cool. And I got a whole bunch. I'm an IMDb trivia most of the time, but it's trivia that people, I don't think even IMDb has yet. Cause there's like Shazam 2 comes out, and I'm I have a memory of being on the set of the first movie, and every time they yelled cut, they would literally, Zach and Jack and Asher would go and sit down on these fold up lawn chairs in front of a Nintendo Switch, and they would play Mario Kart, and they had a Switch going, and they had to play Nintendo the whole time because Zach wanted to, his character was supposed to be young and, really young at heart. So they literally had as much fun on set, but they would literally play Nintendo between takes. And I was I saw that and I was like, I don't know if IMDb knows that, but hey, there's some movie trivia. I'm like, oh my God, I got so much stuff. I'm I gotta start sharing it, because I'm at that point now where, you look in the mirror and I'm I'm going to start forgetting this stuff soon. So
I think you're a little bit far away from that point, but
Yeah. What was that movie called? Yeah, no.
So the other thing, what you tweeted about, and this will be a relatively quick thing, so that you can go and you have a very full, busy life. And so you tweeted about the idea, I think it was AMC, that they wanted to do basically tiered seating pricing, right? And they wanted to do more
Oh, yeah.
kind of like it was like a stadium or a concert hall or whatever. So
Yeah.
I know your opinion on that is obviously that that's a terrible idea, because it is frankly a stupid idea. Now I'm going to propose an alternative strategy, and you tell me if you like
right.
it, okay? Because I've been preaching this forever. What if they said, hey, those movies that are, they've been out for a while, let's cut the prices on those to try to incentivize people so we don't have to run theater, like movie screenings with 2 people sitting in the theater. We can try to incentivize it so you can fill up a whole theater, because even if you're not getting full price for those tickets, you're getting people to watch a movie in theaters, which is the goal. And also you're getting them to spend on snacks and all that other stuff, instead of saying, let's charge more for good seats and less for bad seats.
Yeah. Well, remember just a few minutes ago when I said companies, they were a lot about the short game and the instant buck, and not the long game. And I feel like, that would, so many times we would pitch ideas like that, in meetings, and like, hey, what about doing it this way? What about doing that way? I feel like this would, like, even with the pre-show, or like, what if we put more into this show and grew it, and then maybe we could syndicate it. Like we could sell it to like a news station. So on Fridays they would air like a 1 minute, like if you go to in America, if you go to any hotel, there's like Mario Lopez on the TV that's like giving you like a movie roundup. Like, what if we did that in like Canada? Or, what if we grew the YouTube channel so you could monetize it and make money that way? So that way, when the theaters close, if they ever had to, you could still make money off of YouTube. And they refused to monetize it. They refused to. So there were so many ideas over the time. And I mean, like I said, with the streaming option of selling a subscription to a streaming platform. And there's just so many good ideas that you think would be good ideas. And I've honestly I've talked about that same thing with people of why not reduce the prices of movies? And also for me, I'm just big on movies should be affordable
for everybody. Well,
you
want people to watch in theaters. That's the goal of the entire industry.
Yeah, and it's not anymore. It's you're getting less for more nowadays, especially with even this particular example. There's no pre-show anymore. There's no magazine. There's no time play. There's no anything. So, and the prices didn't drop to reflect that.
They went up.
The theater.
Well, they said
and the theater, they went up. And the theaters that a lot of people are going to years ago, they were owned by Silver City, or they were owned by
monopoly,
AMC.
so it's obviously there's no competition anymore in Canada. So
no, but even the theaters, like the ones that were owned by AMC and Silver City, when they were acquired, they weren't renovated. The experience wasn't improved. It was literally you can walk into some of these theaters, and that's why they all look different, especially around Toronto. Like you go to Yonge and Dundas, and that looks different than the Scotiabank downtown, because it's
Scotiabank needs to be renovated. Scotiabank needs to be renovated badly.
9 out of 10 of them do. It's like the buildings are falling apart, the seats are broken, and that's why when I tweeted about the price ranges reflecting on how busted your seat is, it's but that's the thing is it needs to be about the experience, and it needs to be about getting films to people, especially important films, and not to just do it to make money. I know.
Well, you're going to make money, by the way, if you incentivize people to go to a theater, because people would rather go to a theater than go to a virus-ridden website to watch a movie. That's just a fact.
Yeah, but if it's affordable for people to see, I think there are a lot of films that are important for, changing the cultural landscape. And unfortunately, a lot of people may not see them because they're not readily available. And even, past movements that we've seen online, certain companies have curated libraries of certain films that correspond to that, but then it's just a giant ploy to get people to go to their website or their subscription service, because they make the movie $1 for the first day and then it's full price after that. So it's they literally commandeer these movements as a way to just advertise for themselves. And I mean, you see it all the time with banks and Pride Month and whatever, and Bell Let's Talk and whatever. But it's no, I think we should let's put all that aside, and I would love to have a company that cares about movies, that brings movies to people, that actually cares about movies and the experience. And I think if that is the case, and they really do care about films, then they will make those decisions, like lowering the prices of movies so they can see it. Like a movie like, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Legendary movie.
One Best Picture. Why lower the tickets, $5, fill the theaters, let people see it. Moonlight, all these other movies, let people see these movies for like for cheap or I mean, come on, like, and at the end of the day, like the money is for a theater, 99% of the money is made at a concession anyway.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So,
you get all that. If the ticket, and it's ridiculous. I find it so ridiculous.
if you lower the prices, then you will, you're still making the money. People also, it's that whole when they give you free drinks at a casino, then you think you're ahead and you play more money, you put more money into the slot machine. But I mean, there is more that goes into the ticket pricing of a movie because then there's also the studio has to, be in on it
because
and
they get
willing to take
it's a 50-50 split essentially.
But I think the studio though, like I think a lot of these studios understand that like once it is finished its theatrical run, like we're not living in a blockbuster era anymore. And the amount of people that buy physical copies, it's very limited. So I feel like, once it's done its theatrical run, the bulk of the money has been made for the in most cases, unless it's like
most movies make their money off products afterwards, right? Like Disney makes the majority of the stuff off merchandise and theme park rides, which
unless it's like a Marvel film, like the new Spider-Man, that when it's done in theaters, the fans are so excited that they're going to go out and buy the steelbook version and buy this version and buy whatever and buy a physical copy. But when it comes to like I don't know, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, like someone may go see that in the theaters and like it, but are they like this, are they gonna purchase a copy? So I think in a lot of these cases you have to just while it's in theaters, like as much people to see it as possible and adjust prices accordingly. And I think you would see a huge influx. Like I think you're right. Like even the people who want to see it first weekend to avoid the spoilers will pay a higher price and then taper it off from there. But you're also seeing films go to streaming faster. Right. So they're almost getting like squeezed out in the middle because if they're gonna do it, like if people are seeing how much those movies cost in the theater, and to take my family, or take a family of 4 to a movie is going to cost $150 with popcorn, and if you go see it in 3D or IMAX, it's like it's incredibly expensive.
To watch a movie.
And then you see a promo online that like I think I even just saw like Shazam 2 is going to be on Prime in April already. So if I see that and I'm like, all right, do I want to take my family and spend $250 and then buy everyone a combo and we're going to see this in IMAX? Or I'm like, or I already have a Prime membership and on April 12th or whatever, it's going to hit Prime. So, I mean, and we've seen during the pandemic too, like I think the other issue is these, the mindset has to change. Yeah. And the people making these decisions are an older generation, an older mindset that don't adapt to the times. Like they really think that like the big format is the true format to see it, to see a movie for everybody. And I think it is important. I love to see movies on the big screen, the sound, the picture, everything. But the reality is a lot of younger generation, like my friends' kids, like watch movies on their phones and don't care that the screen is like 2 inches big. They don't care. Like they'll watch the thing on Netflix. So you have to take that in mind, whether you believe it or not. Yeah. And if you're a big filmy and you're a film nerd or a cinephile, you think one thing, but like that doesn't represent everybody.
Well, and even me, like I don't go to every movie in theaters. Like Shazam 2, there's like 90% of my mind right now that's saying, why the hell am I going to buy it and watch it? I might as well just wait till it comes out on Amazon because I'm not in any rush to see it.
During the pandemic, that shifted for a lot of people. A lot of people realized that maybe like, or they use some of their CERB money to buy a TV or buy a surround sound system. So if you have I got a projector. I got a movie theater in my garage, like in my office. Like I can, so yeah, is there that need anymore to like do that? Like do we still think like that? Does the general population still think like that? We're going into people, potential recession, people, income are changing. Like the price point is still up here. Is the demand for seeing a movie on a big screen still there? Or are people just going to go to see the Marvel movie every 6 months? But then what are these big empty buildings going to do with 12 screens in between Marvel movies? Like what's going to happen?
And even VIP, we could go on a whole nother, and I've gone on rants before about VIP and how they leave those things empty through basically the entire day when the people who are allowed to go into those theaters are, making money to go watch the movies. So
unfortunately, too, with the theaters, because of the old mindset and the way that they run it, they were quick to start a war with the streaming platforms. And there's a huge thing, not to get into it, with like a certain streaming platform and a certain theater company and a certain film festival, where one film festival, the streamer wasn't allowed to show their movies on the theater screens, which even though they were the theater sponsor. Anyway, lines have been drawn, and they've made enemies of these streamers instead of making friends, because honestly, I do believe too, like you look at something like The Last of Us or some of these Netflix shows, I think that you have a better chance of selling tickets to, okay, you can see the first 2 episodes of Stranger Things on the big screen a week early for so much money, even though I think people would are more likely to pay for that than they would see 80 for Brady. So
they reduced prices for 80 for Brady though, so
they did. Okay. But like there's an option that maybe would work, and I know in the US there are some theater chains that are doing that, but yeah, it's like you got to be able to adapt, and you got to be able to approach, to adapt to this changing lens. And I think any company that doesn't do that, it's not, I don't know, like I don't want to say what the future brings, but it's like the world is constantly changing. Our definitions of things are constantly changing. I mean, look at all the businesses we've seen lately. Like there's Foot Locker today, they announced they're closing stores, and Nordstrom, and like Zellers is coming back, and maybe Blockbuster. Like, wow, it's like, who knows what's going on?
Going back in time.
It's like, but we have to keep adapting, and we have to keep changing the definitions as things change, because the film industry is always evolving. There's new techniques, there's new everything, there's new, I mean, look at James Cameron, look what all he's doing. So it's like we have to evolve. Everyone has to evolve. We have to keep adapting. You can't just have this old model and just have this high price point and expect people to like want to come there and see a movie. And like last time I was at a movie, it was like there's someone talking, they were on their phone the whole time. There was someone like literally on Snapchat during the film. People will like take Instagram stories of the movie while it's playing. And it's like, and then your seat's getting kicked, it's broken, it's sticky. It's like, so it's like, I'm like, and there's people that were like arguing in the theater. And I was like, oh man, but I realized at that point how lucky I was, because a lot of the movies that I've seen over the years have been at press screenings or industry screenings, which is a very different audience. Those are people that like are there for the business of seeing this movie, not just like paying theater goers. But yeah, it's interesting.
I'll get so mad at people. I'll tell people to be quiet, or
But even then, there's like a whole thing with like certain theaters too. Like you can't. There's stories of Canadian filmmakers and interviews that I'm sure you can dig up if you look up like Jay Baruchel interviews of like certain theater chains that like dim the bulbs of the projectors to increase their life, because the bulbs are expensive to replace. But if you dim them, you get more hours of play out of them, which means you change them less over a year, which means you save money. But then if you're a filmmaker, that affects like
the quality of your movie.
Well, you've lit a shot. You've lit the shot a certain way. So
they pay a whole bunch of people to light things, and then the theaters are just changing how they light things.
Filmmakers are getting criticized because like, oh man, this guy doesn't know what a light is shot because it's all muddy and you can't see anything. But like, but anyway, it's like that's a whole other thing. But Google that though. I know there's a George Stroumboulopoulos, an episode of his podcast that Jay Baruchel was on, and he talks about it, about theater bulbs, projector bulbs. I think it's still out there unless the Adjustment Bureau has gone out and has somehow deleted it from history. But I heard it with my own ears, so it's there.
And again, thank you. Again, as I start to wrap things up, thank you so much for coming on. I really love talking to you. And hey, I gotta tell you, you're welcome to come here anytime you want to talk about movies, because man, I could talk to you about movies for like ever and ever and ever. So
yeah. And I look forward, we'll do it again, and then I'll get my podcast thing off the ground, and then we'll I've got like most of the groundwork. It's been tough because I got so many other like projects on the go and other things in flux, so it's like this, it's like still nagging me, and I just need to sit down and like get it together and whatever. So it's I plan on I should have a date soon as far as like a launch date, but it's coming together. I really want to like get it to a place though that's like
you're ready to go. Yeah.
I want to start good, strong out of the gates. I know, like, I want to do it right. So, because especially if I'm going to already join the millions of established seasoned podcasters. I need to make sure I know what I'm up against. But
especially those Canadians who've been doing big things, especially
I know, man. I know. But yeah, to be a chance for me to I get so many it's crazy that I've been doing this for, oh man, like in 2007, I started in the whole media world. And since I've been, doing whatever somewhere, and I've got it's interesting. Things that I literally will forget about stuff, and then I'll watch a movie and be like, oh my God, I remember this now. I was at a party one time and Billy Zane took my phone and took a picture of me with my wife. And then I took a picture of Billy Zane after, and then somebody got a picture of both of those moments happening and put them together. And I was like, I forgot about that because I was watching The Phantom. The Phantom came on TV, and I was like, I love, which by the way, Billy Zane doesn't get enough love. But there's so many really cool experiences over the years. And I love to, share some stories, pass on some wisdom, answer some questions.
I'll be the first person watching all of your or listening to all your podcasts.
Yeah. And what do you want to know? Because I also realized too, especially from a mental health, perspective, people hang on to stuff and they keep stuff, to themselves. And it's I'm just I'm at a point now where it's what's the, I've been, stifled and muffled for so long, and you live in fear of losing a job or upsetting somebody that ultimately can't be pleased anyway because they make irrational emotional decisions. So you try to you run yourself, through this unwinnable game, and then you end up pulling your hair out. And I realize now at this point, it's I don't know, just be
do
honest.
whatever you want, kind of just
do whatever you want, and be honest, and know that and that's the thing with social media too, is I'm not on it all that much. And I know even social media is a huge misleading thing for a lot of people. And, it's everyone's best foot forward and what that can do. And I always tried, even now that I realize, especially more so now, if I share a Throwback Thursday post with somebody on the set, I try to give someone something a story or an anecdote or something, because I've seen so many people over the years just post selfies and with the caption that's so this just happened, and I'm oh, it just happened. Oh, you just happened to go to a hotel and walk into a room that had a crew and a camera, and Keanu Reeves just happened to be sitting there, and you just happened to talk to him, and then you just happened to take a picture with Keanu Reeves. I'm wow, that just happened. That's so crazy that just happened. But it's and then people feel bad, and they're well, I wish I was doing that and whatever. But no one sees the struggle, right? Nobody sees what goes on behind the scenes and what it took to get there and to pull that off. And especially to have to be the person who's so happy all the time and pretending they love every movie. And I found out my grandfather died the morning I was flying to LA to cover a junket for Hotel Transylvania. And there was no system in place for replacing me on these junkets, or there was no plan or talk of what would happen if I couldn't do it, or if I didn't board this flight because the studio was paying for it. So I literally because there was no solution, I found out he passed. I boarded a plane, went to do an interview. I was sitting down with Andy Samberg and Selena Gomez, haha, yeah, with all this, trying to put everything aside. And then I left, and my Uber got in this crazy car accident, and I messed up my back, and I had to settle with all these insurance companies. And then when I landed back in Toronto, I had to go and do another shoot. And then but then people see you up there and they're oh, he looks like shit, or oh, whatever. And it's nobody knows what goes on.
Right.
And even though it was a Hotel Transylvania interview that was edited down to nothing, that people just talked through, it's what goes on behind the scenes. And I'm not trying to make it sound more important than it was, but I think it goes with anybody's job. It's just
so much else that goes on besides what people see. And so
even what you do, and having to edit all these podcasts and put it all together.
Editing.
You gotta there's some your intro, you're creating stuff, you're uploading things, you're writing, there's just work, and there's things, and you have a guest that bails or whatever, and you got to last minute scramble or don't put an episode. Then you got people complaining, well, where you been, man? Are you lazy or you whatever? It's no, yeah. So you just gotta like, people to. I feel like we would all be nicer to each other too if we understood, had a little empathy and knew what kind of went on. And I think for this industry especially, it's a lot of like, it's like Hollywood. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of like best foot forward, a lot of whatever, but no one really knows what goes on.
Oh yeah, no,
like,
I've never posted a picture of the 7,000 interviews that people have said, you're too irrelevant for me to care. Agents, not the people, but the agents saying that.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's the thing, and I think this industry is a lot of that because everyone's trying to like, it's about your persona and how you are projected online and how you look, and everyone wants to look a certain way. But I'm like, I don't know. I just want to be like authentic and honest and I think honesty is the best way to go. I think a lot of people try to tell people what they want to hear, and then you end up getting caught into whatever. It's just like anyway, but so
as my natural light fades and people are gonna lose it slowly because Toronto sunset. You're losing the ability to see me because I'm gonna rely on natural light here. With that being said, thank you so much for making the time. And again, I've got to absolutely have you back. I mean, I love talking movies with you, and I'm sure you love talking movies with me. I'm just gonna pretend you do.
Sure, I'll give it to you. No, it was great, man. And anytime. And if anyone wants to like know more about anything or has questions about any aspect of the industry, or like I said, wants to get into this, like I'm easy to find on social media and whatever.
Your social media handles underneath your picture right now, so everyone can find you.
Amazing. So there you go. Wherever it is,
yes,
right there.
Yeah.
You can like, and then feel free to like send questions in, and I'll answer them, and maybe I'll address some of them in future episodes of my podcast when it's finally gets going. But yeah, it's let me know. Reach out. I always love like meeting people and.
No, I do have to say my Instagram DM where I initially asked you if you want to do this was unread, but it's all good. It's all good.
Unread?
Unread. I know. It says sent. Yeah.
It was on read or unread?
Unread. It just says sent.
Okay, so yeah, it's like the thing of Instagram. It's like there's multiple inboxes, and there's like if I don't
general and priority or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a general priority, and there's also like an other, and I don't go in the other very often because it's like a lot of weird stuff in there.
Oh yeah, I know that. I know that.
It's another story in itself, and I've had stories, and I've had police show up at my place.
Whoa.
And anyway, it's like and I know that folder, like I think it deletes itself. So it's like your junk folder, like it kind of deletes itself. So I try to get in there once in a while because I know some stuff does move over. So I don't know, maybe I'm not trying to like.
Hey, no, that's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
But hey, it happened. We connected. So
exactly.
It obviously.
Don't worry, I'm gonna tag you like 700 times when this episode comes out to promote it. So I'm sure you'll know who I am by that. Like you'll know me at that point. So
great.
It's all good.
Well, you got enough for like 5 episodes at least.
Oh no, these are our episodes. We just go all in. Then we use TikTok to like give people like the 30-second versions of this. That's the strategy. Again, thank you so much, and everyone who's watching, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to do all the stuff people tell you to do. Subscribe, follow us on social media at comicboys_. Obviously, you can follow Tanner on social media, and he will respond to you. That's what he said here.
I will.
And
unless it's you, then I will leave it unread.
Yeah, okay. And you can follow me on social media.
I'll respond to everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. You can respond to everyone but me. But then everyone can follow me on social media at KhalilJamal03. And thank you all for watching this episode.
02 taken or 01 taken?
2003 year of birth. So 03 as the
as your year. I see.
That was the logic behind it.
I thought you were the third. Like there was like 2 others before you, and you had to be the third one. I see.
Actually, it's funny because my username used to be Khalil_Deadpool for the longest time. But then I was like, hey, that's not really professional, so let's change it a little bit. So then it became this.
I mean, why isn't it professional?
I don't know.
That's professional.
It seemed like the university's doing I mean, granted, I go walk around everywhere with superhero shirts, so I don't know if like professionality is like the shining.
Professional is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I've like going to a financial building in downtown Toronto or Pixar. You're gonna get a different vibe. So
yeah, it's true.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
We can wear your comic shirt. It's professional. It's
Oh yeah.
professional.
I know.
It's good.
You know what you told me? Hey, why you keep wearing these things? You're like an adult. You're in university. No, none of that.
But maybe the people that have the problem with that, they're the
jealous.
ones with
They're jealous.
Exactly. Maybe it's not the way you're seeing it. Maybe you got it right and they got it wrong. Just saying,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think they're all jealous. They're all haters.
Maybe they need to get more comic book shirts. Like, I mean, I feel like they're not hard to find anymore. Like,
no, I have a whole drawer of them.
Yeah, whoever doesn't have, if you don't at this point have at least one comic book shirt, then what's
exactly? And again, now as I literally don't know if people can actually see me anymore. Because
this looks scary. This is turning into a true crime podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, Toronto, for giving me no natural light longer than like 7:30, which is actually pretty long.
I love it.
Compared to where it was a few weeks ago. Anyways, again, thank you so much, and thank you all for watching. And I know you have to go because I know you have things to do. I've got to fix the lighting. And I'll see everyone watching next time. And I'm sure we would definitely have to do this again. Got to have you back because movies are fun to talk about, and I talk about movies. So yeah.
And then we can circle back to that Infinity War conversation from the beginning.
Oh, we will.
We'll debate that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. There's something. All right.
Okay.
There's a whole thing about the fatigue of the Marvel and whatever. It's like, I mean, anyway,
we can do this. We can do like 17 hours of talking about movies.
We'll discuss next time.
Yes.
But I mean, all right. I'll give it to you that Infinity War was different. But I mean, I feel like when you knew that these actors signed contracts for sequels, when the snap happened, they weren't actually gone.
Right,
there was no stakes.
It was 1 second. You felt like it. In 1 second, you felt like it. I felt it for 1 second. Then I thought about it, and I was like, okay, no.
Yeah, exactly.
But in 1 second,
everyone's like, oh, what about Infinity War when Tom Holland disappears? But then you look, and there's a news story that Tom Holland just signed on for 3 movies. Like, come on.
Okay, so comments, figure this out. Answer this question: does Infinity War end with like Thanos winning? And is that a movie that ends with Thanos winning or a bad guy winning?
I mean, technically it does, but I think if anyone like any Marvel fan who knows, I mean, they're not gone. It's like every time those like bands say they're doing a farewell tour. Do you know how many times like Kiss has done a farewell tour just so they can do a reunion tour and just so they can do another farewell tour and a reunion? They're literally, according to what I saw recently, I think they're finally on their like, this is the final farewell tour. For now. Like, it's comics, right? People die, come back. They die, come back.
But you get to feel it for 1 second of emotion, and then it's like the reality. So
I do have a story about that, but we'll save it for another time. But
next time you come on.
It was. I'll give it to you. It was a little shocking, but I mean, they also didn't really like die in a gruesome way. Like, honestly, when I saw Infinity War, I was a little confused as to like if they were even dying or disappearing, because it looked like a little Star Trek-y, a little like teleportation-y. I was like, oh, maybe they're going to another dimension.
Technically, they did teleport, but yeah. Technically, they did teleport.
I was like, oh, maybe they're disintegrating or into another dimension, but like the fact they turned to dust. So like, I feel like if they would have turned inside out and like into zombies and like Tom Holland's head exploded, would have been the stakes I was looking for with Infinity War.
I don't know if that would have gotten the PG-13 rating they were going for, though.
I don't think you could. I think they would have had to, but that one, they should have raised the rating, and they should have been like, warning, you may see Tom Holland's it turn inside out.
That might have actually traumatized me for life, so I don't think that would have been good. I mean, as it is,
that would be the stakes. So when that movie ends, you're like sitting there and quiet in the theater, like, oh my God, that was horrible. And then they come back and
they turned to dust, so
the dust thing, it's like it didn't even look that cool. Like I've seen like Buffy the Vampire Slayer vampires turn into dust look cooler than that. Looked like a screensaver from like old Windows. Like it was like pixels fading away. Come on, like I don't know.
I mean, we'll have to tell us in the comments. Answer this question.
Yeah. Where was those heroes turning to sand? Sad for anybody.
I mean, I know I cried. First movie I ever cried. Second movie I ever cried in. But it's all good.
You cried when he turned into.
I mean,
all right.
For the first second, because it was like, oh my God, what did they just do? Because I didn't see it coming. It was the first time I didn't see an ending to a movie coming. It was very frightening for me. Which I should have probably seen it coming, but I didn't for some reason. So
yeah,
never gonna let that happen again.
People were confused. people around me in the theater were like, "Are they gone or what's happening?" If they were like, again, like, are they? I feel like there was a line missing. Like they should have said, "Oh my God, they're dead," and then you would have been like,
and then cue the laugh track and then the credits.
Yeah, like there would have been more. Yeah, it's a little ambiguous.
Okay, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time, and I'm sure you'll be back. And I'm literally like just a dark box, so
you gotta get to an IKEA and buy a lamp.
No, there's a lamp right there. I just said that. I just didn't turn it on.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I turned all the lights on before I started this, but hey.
The natural light was looking good. And I was like, hey, this is good. And then it became dark, and now I'm a dark box, and the lamp is... There's literally a lamp right there.
Hey, next time. It's okay.
Yeah. Thank you again for coming on.
Daylight savings. It gets us all. All right. Appreciate it.
Daylight saving now is positive, so, now it's like the days are longer, right? So.
I was trying to help you out, giving you some excuse for sitting in the dark.
There's no excuse except my own intelligence for not turning on the lamp right there, pointing at me for this specific purpose. But
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. Thank you again for coming, and everyone should follow you on social media and wait and get excited for what is going to be the epic announcement of your podcast, which I'm sure you'll make a big social media video from announcing that.
Yeah, we're gonna do something big with it, and but I got a few other things to clear out first. But yeah, it's at this point it's been set in motion. It's happening,
and
it's like Deadpool 3. It's coming. We don't know what's going on we know what's happening.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know.
It's the same level as Deadpool 3. Like people should see it as that. Like if you're, I would say Deadpool 3 is a little below this podcast.
Okay,
definitely. But
so now you better be wearing a Deadpool costume in the announcement video for the podcast. Now you just set that expectation for everyone.
I'm also changing my email to Deadpool _Deadpool 03 or whatever your email was. So
damn, you're stealing my ideas. Wow.
Now that you no longer have the email, it's available, so I'm going to take it.
So I'm going to now then have to label this episode Tanner Time because I think it's a good name, and that's what it's going to be called.
Okay, so, sounds good to me. Well, I do have to run to something else now, anyway,
I will let you go. And thank you again, and thank you for everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. See you later.